much more matured in a way that relevant actors do now know how to pass through the procedures. And I think in the future we need to pay much more attention to the content of the assessment as such, data availability, reliability of the methods used for the assessment, etc. Thank you.
My one single point would be that energy is very important, very sensitive, but yet it does not give and should not give rise to exclude it from general environmental obligations that are applicable to all other projects and activities. So, all other sectors of economy. Each they have their own specificity, but the same criteria should apply to all activities, regardless of whether this is a very, very expensive nuclear power plant or a small wastewater treatment or whatever other activity. Certain minimum should apply, and we cannot let them get out of environmental scrutiny.
I think the role of the convention, as the Espoo Convention, has to be to have a better understanding between neighboring countries, because all the energy projects are very often large-scale projects, in particular nuclear power plant projects are large-scale projects, which always could have a potential impact on neighboring countries. And I think this Espoo Convention should help to mitigate conflicts which are rising from this kind of projects, and come to a better understanding of neighboring countries, and not to mitigate conflicts. I think this is very important.
And following what Michael has said, I would like once again to highlight that we have two pioneering international legal instruments that potentially will be opened to the other parts of the world. It is for us to support them, to highlight the importance of those instruments as tools for the protection of the environment, as tools for cooperation not only within the UNEC region, but also reflecting good practice that could be followed on a broader basis. And in that respect, the EIB, as it was discussed in previous seminars, will promote the good practices that we have gained thanks to these two precious instruments within the UNEC region to other parts of the world, with a view to ensure sustainable development worldwide, especially today that we have the Environment Day, knowing that the environment has no borders.
Yes, I think there are 2 points which are important in this context. One is that several speakers have stressed that the EIA or SAA requirements on the one hand and the planning and permit requirements on the other hand should be brought in line. That is, that the planning and permit processes should be adapted to the requirements of strategic environmental assessment or environmental impact assessment, so as to make these instruments more effective in the planning and permit decision-making context. The other is that the content of SEA and EIA gets more into the center of importance now, in addition with quality control, and I think it would be rather useful to specify also in the form of guidelines or some similar texts what is necessary to carry out an EIA or an SIA of sufficient quality and how this quality can be guaranteed. Thank you.
I think from my point of view, we have a very interesting idea today. First of all, the need of very clear and well-specified national procedures, maybe a framework in force for each country. But we must say that we have a very fine balance between very clear and enforced laws and flexibility and competitivity in economy. And we must be very attentive, especially when we look to energy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I want to say that I think with regard to what Jerzy was saying here, we are in full agreement. Obviously, the procedures are the safeguards. They cannot, however, safeguard the whole development from, or they may become complicated. So the objective, I think, would be to improve the planning processes to integrate environmental issues and find more upstream ways of considering alternatives and resolving conflicts and so on, so that we can pass through these safeguards. And I believe that, for example, hearing the examples from Austria, Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark, there are lots of these processes that are actually in place, and if there would be a way of sharing that information or establishing a similar processes, looking at the energy issues, having a long-term engagement and really this integrated planning, which would be looking at different options and so on. I think this would be a very interesting, not just for the energy sector, but as I said, for the rest of the SCA practice, because it may inform the practice in the next years to come.
Thank you very much for listening to this high-level panel. Thank you very much to the panelists, to all of you for your extraordinary contributions. I mean, what I heard and take away is that the convention and the protocol are existing unique tools that are increasingly popular and that are a good basis for what we're trying to do. In particularly, will be interesting to expand the usage in the energy sector, as we heard, and as one can always do better. With your help, this can happen. We heard so many good ideas about how to move this forward. Not that this will be easy, given the contradictory and complex nature of interests, but it can be done. This is clearly what is the outcome from this workshop, that there is a positive way forward, and through guidelines and more interaction and definitely dialogue, this can happen. And the power of case studies, the power of learning from each other and listening to what works and doesn't work, and very transparently and honestly talking about solutions will be a way forward. So in this spirit, I close the session now, and I will hand back over to the chair, and thank you very much.